Cashflow Diary podcast, episode 450.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because sometimes we can let things limit our possibilities that don't necessarily have to. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean, some of you could live in a place that is not conducive to a particular type of business and therefore think, I cannot do that business. For example, if any of you happen to live in Antarctica, you're not selling ice cream today, are you? You get my point. Here's what I mean, though. When it comes to real estate, often, your backyard is a great place, a great strategy to begin. But for some of you, your backyard is about the price of the Taj Mahal, meaning it is impossible for you to go out there and get started in a small, sizable way, tangible way that doesn't require a small fortune just to be able to eke out maybe $100, $200, or $300 a month of cash flow. And you're just like, man, how on earth am I ever going to do this thing? Especially if you're in real estate. Well, I have with me today a gentleman that you've heard from before. And more importantly, we're going to talk about something that I think is important to you. And it's the concept of long distance real estate investing. Now, let's be clear. Even though the real estate is far away, the mailbox money is still right in your front door. So you just don't have to go that far to get paid, but you do have to do things differently. And he has written a book called Long Distance Real Estate Investing: How to Buy, Rehab, and Manage Out-of-State Real Estate Properties. I'm talking about none other than David Greene. He is an author, real estate agent, and he also lives in the Bay Area, which we will collectively call the home of the most expensive rental property on the planet, or at least that's what it feels like, I'm sure, from being up there. Now, I hope you are ready to listen. I hope you're ready to take some notes. I hope you're ready to find possibility and increase your probability of actually going out there and making something happen. Help me welcome David Greene. David, you there?
What is going on, Jay? How are you today?
So far, so good. Pretty excited. Excited for you, excited for life, excited for cash flow and everything that everyone is doing. So do us a favor, because you sit in a very unique position. Very few people make it here twice, and you are. So give us an update of what's been going on since the last time we had a conversation.
So first off, I am very excited about your intro. That was incredible. I should pay you to just follow me around everywhere and announce every time I walk into a room. I could get used to that.
Yeah.
So since I spoke with you last, my real estate agent business has been doing really well. I ended up as the number one agent in my office, and it was basically 1 year full time.
Nice.
That went really good. And it's basically because I take the principles that I've used for real estate investing and I've applied them to being a real estate agent, and it's worked really well. So that's something that I'm passionate about, is learning what you're doing well in one area of your life and how you can take those same skills and translate them into another area of your life to do well there, because very few of us are going to get to where we want to go with just one step. Usually it's several steps, right? One leads to the next and leads to the next. And we're all looking for financial freedom. So you need to understand that you're going to need several different steps to get there. It may be a whole bunch of different rental properties. It may be a couple different businesses. It may be just learning how to work at the job you have right now and develop skills before you're ready to step out. But that's something that, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about and studying and meditating on is, well, how did I do well in this versus that? And what I found is that if you take these principles that make you successful in one area, you apply them to another, you tweak it because every area is a little bit different, you're very likely to find success there. So what I've been able to do is take, the principles that made me a good real estate investor in my own market and start investing in other markets when mine just became too expensive. So like you mentioned, I live in the California Bay Area, and during 2010, I could buy deals out here. I mean, everyone could buy deals. It was like hitting water to fall out of a boat. And when that changed, it just became a barren landscape of deals. You were not going to find a property that would cash flow. And I've had to learn to go to other areas that make more sense and do it there.
Well, hold on. You're saying a $500,000 one-bedroom condo doesn't cash flow?
Yeah, you're not looking at the 1% rule. You're looking at like the 0.3% rule.
Oh, I can't possibly imagine why that would be a problem. So totally understood. So as would happen with many entrepreneurs, when you are faced with the challenge, you have to adapt or die. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and you've chosen to adapt. Now, before we get too much further, though, I got to ask, because I know you have a passion for basketball. I'm curious, how's the bracket going?
This year I wisely recognized that I've been too busy to follow, and I didn't want to set myself up for heartbreak. And looking at how it's turned out, I am so glad I didn't get invested into that, because I mean, this is like the craziest bracket I've ever seen. Have you ever seen anything like this year?
No, I was wondering if Xavier, who I know somewhere, I've seen so many posts. People are like, "Why did I even bother?" I'm like, "Yeah. I don't know."
Yep.
It's like you could not predict the upset, the crazy, but that's kind of how markets are, upset and crazy from time to time. But yeah. I know from a lot of experience, having done similar things to what you're doing, when it comes to investing in long distance or something that's further away or foreign market or what have you, there's lots of anxiety, lots of fear. I'm curious to know, why did you feel the need to write a book specifically? Because there's lots of real estate investing books, but you're specifically talking about long distance real estate investing. What is it that you see that's available to people that they might not be seeing or witnessing right now?
So frankly, I wrote that book because there is no other resources out there for the person who wants to invest in real estate but can't where they live, or it just doesn't make sense to where they live. So I have this analogy that if you were a farmer and your field could grow peas, but peas were selling at such a horrible price that it didn't even make sense to grow them, would you just wait for the pea market to change, or would you go find a field somewhere else where you can grow a crop that would sell for more? So maybe you can go out there, you could grow corn, and corn selling at a premium. It wouldn't make any sense to sit on your hands and say, woe is me, I guess I can't plant anything, I'll just do nothing, when a little bit of work up front could yield you huge results. And what I found is, with real estate investing, the fundamentals are exactly the same no matter where you go, right? It's in your head that you think you can't do it. There was a time when out-of-state investing was extremely risky, and the reason was you couldn't do any due diligence. You were in California or New York, and you called some guy in Kentucky that you didn't know, and there was no internet, so you just called on the phone, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've got tons of properties that'll work for you." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, that thing's $70,000. How could you buy a house for $70,000 when you're used to seeing houses that are $500,000, right?"
Does it have a roof?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes. And you think that you found some secret that nobody else has ever seen, and you've struck gold, and so you went and bought all these $70,000 houses that were really probably worth $45,000, because that broker had no reason to be honest with you. He was never going to see you again. Yelp didn't exist. You couldn't give him bad review. You bought in the worst parts of town, and then you had some property manager you just had to blindly trust. And when he told you the tenant didn't pay rent, how did you know? You don't know if the tenant's paying rent. Maybe they're just giving it to him, and he's telling you that they didn't pay rent. So the reason it got a bad reputation was because the lack of information that was available made it risky. I don't believe long distance investing is risky. I believe ignorant investing is risky. Well, now we live in the information age, and almost all of the due diligence that you would ever do for a house right down the street is available to you for that same house in Kentucky. And furthermore, you now have ways that you can form relationships with people in Kentucky, per se, that can do the job for you rather than you doing it. And I think, Jay, you can recognize that one of the biggest hurdles for entrepreneurs is they want to try to do everything themselves. They don't trust people. They don't know how to recognize talent. They don't know how to leverage themselves, right? And they create this artificial ceiling to their own success because they're trying to do everything. Now, none of us are good at everything. In our last episode.
Hold on.
maybe you, right? But you're an exception, right? You're the LeBron James, okay? For the rest of us, like, I'm Steve Kerr. I could shoot 3-pointers really good. I'm not the guy you want to get in there to get a rebound, all right? Recognizing that about yourself is one of the quickest ways to make yourself a better player. Because if Steve Kerr knows this is where he's successful, he shoots threes, he's only going to go to teams that already have a Michael Jordan on him or a Tim Duncan because he knows he's going to get open looks and he doesn't need to rebound. Well, my real estate investing philosophy is the same way. I know there are a few things that I do really well and a lot of things that I do not do well. And I find people in those areas to do those parts for me that I don't do well. And it's kind of supercharged my success.
I get that 100%, especially the team analogy. Now, when you talk about being able to do the due diligence, I'm going to make an assumption, possibly not that far-fetched, that there's a lot of what you're really saying is that technology is changing real estate to make it more accessible. So therefore, the long distances, I mean, there was a time where we actually used stamps to send communication. I'm like,
Yes.
when's the last time you had one of those? But what you're saying is that the advent of technology is what's making this more possible. Talk to us a little bit more about what are those tools? What is the technology that makes long distance investing? I think the word you used was, can make the long distance investor less ignorant about what it is
Yes.
that they're doing and how to be better at it.
So that's really the first thing that I talk about in the book is the technology that I use to make real estate investing long distance just the same as if it was next door. I had an eye-opening moment when one of my properties that was an hour away, I got that email from the property manager saying, hey, there's a leak in the sink. We want to send a plumber. Do you want to send your guy or should we send our guy? And I asked him to send me a picture of the leak because I wanted to see how bad it was. And it was like a significant leak. It was pretty bad. So I said, no, just send your guy. I don't want to try to get a hold of someone to send him out there to maybe save a little money. And I had this light bulb go off like, man, it's an hour away, but I'm not going to go out there and look at it to make sure that the leak is real and to try to fix that myself. I have better things to do with my own business and go try to learn to be a plumber and fix a leak. It was the same thing I was doing for that house that was several states away. They sent me pictures or video of what the problem was. They gave me the option of how to fix it. And then I had built a system where I could either dispatch somebody that I had already found in that area that could fix it or rely on them to do it. It was the exact same process. And then I found that when my leases would come up for my California properties, I was going on to rentometer.com and I was looking up what's the market rent. I was doing the very same thing for my properties that were in Arizona. It was exactly the same. And when I really tested myself, like, what am I doing for these California properties that's different than somewhere else? It was zero. The only difference was when I wanted to buy a house near me, I would go look at it before I bought it. And when it was far away, I couldn't see it first. But I also realized I was getting in my own way because I'm not a home inspector and I'm not a contractor and I really don't know what I'm looking at when I go walk a house. I know what I think. I don't know what a tenant's going to think. I don't know what's wrong with it, right? I'm much better served to read the inspection report that the inspector gives me and read the bid that the contractor gives me and use those numbers to make a sound financial decision. That's really what we're doing, right? So I realized it might be better that I'm buying these properties that are further away because I'm not tempted to try to get involved in the process where I have no business being. So it's the fear we have is due from ignorance. It's I don't know what I don't know. And that scares me. I don't know what's going to be coming, right? Once you understand all the decisions you're going to need to make and the steps you're going to need to take to get a rental property up, running, and profitable, it doesn't matter where they are. Now, let's say you wanted to buy something in another country. There would be a new round of due diligence that you would do because they may have different lending standards. They may have different laws. They may have different practices. There's a little bit of that to learn when you go to new areas. When you go to Florida, the tenants expect you to put a fridge in the house. In California, we don't put a fridge. We would just put like a stove and a microwave, dishwasher maybe. So there's a few small things, but that's like one question to a local property manager to ask them what the standard norm is, and you're there. I challenge every listener who says that sounds too scary to write down why they think it is scary, what the real reason is that they think could go wrong, and then ask themselves if they couldn't fix that with like 1 or 2 steps.
What's funny about that is that I would often tell people, even if the house was next door, I still wasn't gonna go and do anything because I don't have the skill set to fix any of it anyway. So what difference did it make? So I get exactly where you're coming from. However, you're not saying doing it blindly. You're saying, hey, there's tools, there's technology that you can now use to be able to help you feel just as comfortable as if you were standing right there and looking at it. So let me ask this question. What would you say are some of the indispensable tools that you carry around in your utility belt?
The first thing you need is a good team. And it is a tool. You wouldn't think of it like a tool because it's people, but these people serve the function of a tool. I have what I call the core four that I need. I need a deal finder, which is usually a real estate agent, but it could be a wholesaler or yourself if you run a direct mail business. And then you need a lender, a property manager, and a contractor. Those four people can get anything done or know the people that I would need to get anything done to make it happen. Some of the practical tools that I use are just a typical video on a phone. So when an agent says, hey, David, I think we should buy this house, I say, great, what are the numbers? They're going to send me like the ARV, the after repair value, what we think it'll be worth when it's done, what we can buy it for, and their estimated rehab project or budget. Sorry, not project. Then I'm going to send the contractor to the house to give me a itemized list of all the stuff that needs to be done to get it rent ready. And they're going to take a video of the house while they're there, and they're just going to walk in the front door and walk throughout the house and point out to me, this is why I want to change the countertops. This is why I think we can get away with painting the cabinets. This is the shower that I think we need to rip out and redo. Now you can see why. Okay. Once I get that video back, I have a really good idea of what I'm getting into, and they're not charging me for things I don't need. Sometimes I can say, yeah, I think those counters are going to be fine. I saw the video. I think they're okay. Another one that I mentioned earlier would be rentometer.com. That's a website where you can very easily check for market rents in the area and compare it to what your property manager is telling you they think it would rent for to make sure that they're kind of on the same page as you. And then this is going to sound simple, but we live in an era of text messages, and I love it. Every phone call that I get, you've got this obligatory, hey, how are you? Because you don't want to jump right into business and look rude, right? Then I got to listen. Yes. I got to ask you about your kid's swim meet, which I really don't care about. And you're going to tell me about it because you don't want to be rude. Then, hey, we finally get around to the thing we actually needed to discuss. Then we can't just hang up because then that would be rude. We have to do the little outro dance. And it's 12 to 15 minutes for every phone call, where what we really needed was, David, yes or no on this question, right? So what I've done is I've trained everyone I work with to send me text messages. This is how I'm able to do deals while I'm working in all these other capacities, as I've kind of cut out all the fat and streamlined the decision-making process. What I've found is that every deal we make, people think I need 6 hours a day to analyze deals. You don't. Buying a house is probably a 32-minute process broken up into 31-minute conversations, right? If you really narrowed it down. So I use text messages to trim down the amount of time that I spend talking to everyone so that I can be more productive. You've also got Zillow, Trulia, Realtor, Redfin, all those little portal sites, which are not a great way to know what a property is worth, but they are an amazing way to know what it looks like. There's tons of pictures. You can look and see what the chain of title was on those things sometimes. You can see what the property taxes are. A lot of the information that you need to do your due diligence, at least at the initial stage, is right there on these free websites that didn't exist before. I mean, you didn't even know if that property was real. It could have been a vacant lot and they told you it was a house and okay, here you go, let me buy it, right? I can find out the school scores. I can find out all kinds of stuff just from those sites. And again, I don't think that those are very accurate when you're actually making a decision on an important thing like the value, but they're incredibly accurate to get a big picture general idea of what you're looking at, which you didn't have before. We've got all this at our fingertips and no one is taking advantage of it because they're still operating under this old assumption that out-of-state investing equals risky.
Well, what I like about it is, obviously it's new, but it also opens up possibilities for people when you look in your backyard and you go, man, I mean, I would love to own my entire street. Like the street I live on is absolutely ridiculously priced. I mean, the lowest end houses are in the 800s, and that's the small one.
Yeah.
It's but that's just where it is. None of these are going to be your typical starter rental in any way, shape, or form, but so you're creating possibilities or opening up the minds to the possibility of what's out there. What are some of the things that, if someone was brave enough to begin to go, okay, all right, David, I hear what you're talking. I want to, dip my toe into this. What am I going to find when I start looking? What's the process to even begin? All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'm glad that you are enjoying what you are hearing thus far. But here's one of the things that's really important. One of the most important things that you can do is get started. One of the things that I've said before, and I say again, once you get started, stay started. But more importantly, there can be lots of roadblocks to getting started. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove one of those roadblocks for you and make it a little bit easier. Because the thing that I don't want to stop you is thinking, do I need a local number? How about a long distance number? Or should it be 800? How on earth am I going to make that happen so that people can contact me as I'm out there building my business, making my cash flow grow, but most importantly, understanding that it doesn't have to be difficult. Many of you may know, but if you don't, there's a company out there by the name of Grasshopper. And what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Grasshopper is the entrepreneur's phone system. It works like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware to purchase, no software to install. It's just the number that flat works. So if you are out there building that distributed workforce across many different locations, it's a way for you to still go out there and make your number be unified, simple, easy to use, something we've been using for quite some time. So again, go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Now, let's get back to the rest of the story.
The first thing that you want is also the most important, and it's a person in the area that you're looking in that is familiar with real estate investing, is familiar with the process, and has people they can refer you to do the different jobs you need. Most people think I need to go find the deal myself. Then I need to go find all the people to do the work. And they get intimidated because they're like, how do I know my contractor will be good? What if I call 40 people on Yelp? How do I know that this is really the right one to use? What I believe is that rock stars know rock stars. So what I mean by that is that people that are really good at what they do tend to hang out with other people that are really good at what they do. Okay. Some great guitar player like Jimi Hendrix, he's not going to go get a mediocre guy to play the drums when he's recording his music. He's going to find the best drum player available, and he's going to demand excellence out of that person because he's Jimi mother freaking Hendrix, right?
Right. Right.
So if I wanted to get into, internet marketing or internet education or how to run a podcast, and I came to you and I said, hey, what products do you use? I know I really wouldn't need to vet that too hard because you're really good at what you do and you're going to give me really sound advice. If I go to some guy who's trying to do this halfway job out of his garage and not very good at it, I'm probably going to have to look at the information he gives me very, very closely. So that's one trick that I use to save myself a lot of time is if I can find a great real estate agent in that area who's very familiar with real estate investing, probably does it themselves, their property manager is probably awesome because they're going to demand that person is really good, just like they're really good. That property manager is probably going to be able to refer me to incredible handymen that do really good work for really cheap because they rely on that to build up their business and serve their clients, right? That realtor is going to know a lender that works with investors that isn't just the cookie cutter guy. Oh, you conform to normal standards, you can get a loan. Maybe has some creative options out there for investors when you get more than 10 homes or you're in a situation that your debt to income isn't good enough, but this lender won't care about it. Whatever the case may be, they're going to know the people that you need to know to find yourself successful. And what I used to do when I was new is I would just be like everyone else. I'd go look for deals. I wanted to learn how to fish. Where are the fish at? How do I catch them? And that's a good strategy. What I do now is I go look for a fisherman that has so many fish that they can't eat them all. They're going to rot unless they sell it at a really good price. So I spend all my time looking for people who are doing the same thing as me, wholesalers, real estate investors, property managers that buy rentals, real estate agents that invest themselves, and letting them know when you find a great deal that meets my criteria, and here they are, and you don't have the money to buy it, bring it to me first and I'll give you a bonus for it. Or a wholesale fee, an assignment fee, whatever the case may be, right? So I've surrounded myself with, because none of us, most people don't have cash on hand to get every deal that comes their way. When you start off, you don't have any money, then you can't find any deals. Then you get to the point where you find more deals than you have money for. That's usually the way that the thing works. So I want to catch people at that level of, the graph or the line where they don't have enough money to buy every deal, but they don't want to lose this great deal. They're going to lose that fish. It's going to rot. They're not going to be able to eat it. Well, bring it to me and I'll buy it at a discounted rate and give you a little bit for it. So once you get that down, then you start having conversations with these people that do know the area like the back of their hand because they live there. Your property manager, if they manage a lot of properties, knows every single nook and cranny in that city. They know what side of the street is okay, what side's not. They know where the tenants that they are working with want to move to and where they're not super happy about. They know what kinds of properties people are into, if it needs a garage or if a carport will do. All those questions that everyone's saying, well, what about, I don't know this. There is a guy whose job it is to know that, or a girl. You need to go find that person. And what's interesting is that as much as you need them, they need you too, because their business doesn't grow if they don't find people like you. They want to work with people like you, right? So that's what I've done. That's the first thing you need to do, is find those people that know the area. Then you start the process of buying, and you go through your typical due diligence. What's the rent going to be? What are the expenses going to be? Analyzing a property. Am I going to make money? What do I need to know about this area that's different, right? I'm in California. We don't get a whole lot of rain. You go buy a house in, like Indiana, it's going to snow and the roofs are going to need to be replaced every 10 years, right? It's a little different than California. So learning those little things, that's just a conversation with an experienced investor. Like, hey, what are your biggest expenses? And they're going to say, well, you got to pay someone to go shovel snow. I wouldn't have thought of that, right? It hasn't snowed in California since I was in kindergarten. But there is somebody out there for everything that you would need to know. And what you find is that there are places where you can find incredibly good cash flowing deals, or where you can BRRRR a property, that acronym for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, and recover 100% of your capital and go buy another one, where there's no way I could do that where I am. So I don't want to sit on the sidelines and say, well, I'll just wait for the market to crash and assume that when it does and everyone's saying don't buy, that I'm going to somehow be brave enough to go buy, or just lose out on 8 to 12 years of wealth building time when I could have been buying properties and making cash flow, and instead I wasn't. I want to go to where it makes sense to buy, put a team of people in place there, and start buying. I think, Jay, you could probably acknowledge a lot of new investors when they say why they're not getting started. It's, well, everything around me is 800,000. I don't have 160,000 to put down. Well, if you're buying houses that are 80 grand, you only need 16,000 to put down. Like, a lot of people can save up 16,000. You buy a couple of houses in that area, you get the ropes down, you kind of get the process down, and you'll have more confidence to go after the bigger fish then.
Yeah, totally understood. And more importantly, what I liked about it, because that was exactly the strategy I used to get started in the real estate world, was when I realized, hey, if I'm new at something, if I'm new at anything, I'm not good at it at the beginning. Would I rather take a $800,000 risk as my first one, or a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 risk on the first one? And it just seemed to me that the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 risk was easier to stomach when it goes south, versus the $800,000 risk going south would consume way much more time, energy, emotions, etc. And more importantly, at the beginning, it's about the number of times you've done something, not the dollar amounts that you're doing some things with. So if you can do more transactions faster than the person next to you, you can build up the equivalent of a lifetime of experience in opening and closing escrows and completing paperwork faster than the person who's waiting on the big ones. But what my question to you, because I'm hearing some financial concepts inside what you're saying, because there is a reason to obviously wait for the market to crash. I mean, that makes great buying opportunities. But you said something that I think is really important. You said, I don't know if I want to wait necessarily for that, or that I'm going to, have what it takes in order to take advantage of the crash. What is it that you think you are building outside of wealth? What are some of the other intangibles that you're building in the meantime, while you do wait for an impending crash? Not saying that it will, not saying that it won't, but what do you think you gain in the meantime by going this way?
That's such a good question. And it really ties into what you just said, where repetition, in the new book that I'm writing right now, I really focus on repetition builds mastery. If you want to be a black belt martial artist, you are going to practice the very same thing over and over and over. Bruce Lee had this awesome quote: I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who knows one kick and has practiced it 10,000 times. Right? Our brains are designed to pick out patterns when we see things over and over and over. And the more you see them and the more you focus on what you're doing, the quicker you find the pattern. I've heard you mention before that you bought, it wasn't a real estate, it was some other form of investment, like a cell phone tower, something that brought in 1.5% of the purchase price. Your brain at a certain point figured out, I do really well on properties that hit the 1.5% rule. How do I go find more of those? Because you looked at enough deals and you did enough deals. We learned to swim in the shallow end of the pool, not the deep end, because the risk of drowning in the deep end is really big. Well, the risk of not swimming in the shallow end is much smaller because you just put your feet down, right? But the important part is you're learning how to swim. You're getting your stroke. Your body is starting to develop habits and muscle memory and pick up techniques of how to keep yourself above water. And once you're comfortable, you move to the medium end and then you go to the deep end. When we work out, we don't jump right into a hardcore CrossFit workout for our first one ever. You go to the gym, you do 15 minutes of bicep curls. You're incredibly sore the next day. But if you consistently keep going, your body builds up to where it can handle that CrossFit workout. It's like you said, the repetitions are what make you successful. So what I'm doing, buying in these markets where it's kind of lower risk and lower reward because the properties are much cheaper. So the reward for me adding a ton of equity or seeing a ton of appreciation is smaller, but so is the risk is my repetition. I'm going to the gym every day and I'm kicking that bag when everybody else is sitting on the couch and saying, well, I'll wait for the market to turn around. Then I'm going to get in there and I'm going to start training. When it does happen, when we have the correction and California prices fall, which no matter where you live at a certain point, that's going to happen, right? You don't know when. If I continue to use the burst strategy and recover 100% of my capital, I will still have all the money that I would have had to buy. I won't lose anything. But my brain will have had a head start of finding out all the patterns of how I find great deals. So the things that I did in this hypothetical situation, Kentucky, of finding the people, finding the team, finding the people who have deals, not just finding the deal, that's going to work in California when my brain knows how to recognize patterns of success. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need to go on Zillow and look for a good deal. I need to go talk to the bank and find the asset manager who has a portfolio of 25 great deals and then go raise money to buy 25 great deals. I probably wouldn't have thought of that strategy if I hadn't have been getting my kicks in the meantime in these areas that are lower risk and lower reward.
Indeed, 100%. Now, my question to you then is, I mean, if I am to try to quantify what you're saying, I hear you saying that experience is more valuable than capital. Is that accurate?
100%. I tell people all the time, like new agents get started. It's very hard to make money as a real estate agent when you're new, and they get frustrated that they're not making money in their first couple months. And I tell them what you learn is more important than what you earn. It's the information in your head that will ultimately determine how much money you make, not how quick of a start you got off. So the information that you're talking about is worth way more. I mean, that's why people pay up front to get an education, because they're kind of like shortening that learning curve of gathering the information they need to then go around and make money later. We get caught up too much in, did I buy a house yet? Or what's my cash flow right now? And what we should be thinking is, have I been attacking the areas of me that hold me back? And oftentimes that's just ignorance. I don't know this, so I'm not comfortable moving forward. Well, that's great, but don't let that be your excuse to not move forward. Now you know the enemy that you need to go engage.
Indeed. I love it because I've often thought it's okay to be weak. It's just not okay to stay weak.
Oh, there
and you go. That's exactly what I feel you're saying. And when you start using words like in engaging the enemy and attacking the areas, I get all kinds of jazzed up, because I'm like, yes, let's do this thing. And the thing to realize is there's always areas, regardless of the amount of accomplishment that you've had or not had or you've yet to have. There's always areas, and that's part of the human journey at the end of the day. So what I really hear you saying is that you're gaining time. I mean, by starting today, and you were in a better position than not having started, because the person who's waiting and sitting on the sidelines, they can feel like they're doing the wise thing. So what would you say to that guy?
I would say that I thought the same way in 2010 when I thought being conservative was the same as being smart. And I bought one house a year because I was thinking, well, what if it goes vacant for 12 months and I can't find a tenant and all 4 of my properties do it at the same time, right? And I'm like a single dude who can work 100 hours a week if he needs to and has a very steady job as a law enforcement officer. It was stupid to think that way. I thought I was being safe. What I really did was buy one house a year when I should have bought 4. And knocked out probably $2.5 to $3 million of equity that I would have built during that time if I had bought 4 houses instead. Someone asked me a question. It was really good. They said, David, how hard would you work to make $20,000? And I thought, I'd probably be willing to do this, right? And then they said, how hard would you work to stop someone else from stealing $20,000 from you? And immediately you're like, oh, I would fight to the death, right? Like no one's going to take that from me. But why do our brains think that it's better to fight to keep what we have rather than to grow to be able to get more? Theoretically, if someone stole 20,000 from me, but during that time I went and made 40,000, I'd still be ahead. Our brains are hardwired to protect us from loss, to protect us from pain, all these things that are great when we're running around in a jungle trying to hide from tigers, right? But that's not where we live, right? We get on the internet and we drink our Starbucks and we drive around in a temperature controlled car. Like, there's very few of us that are fighting with tigers. Reprogramming your brain to look for opportunity and asking yourself, what would it cost me to not do this? That's what I like to do now. If I don't buy this property 30 years from now, when it's gone up times 5 just from inflation alone, how much will that have cost me to not do it? To not take this risk, to not work on this part of myself that's holding me back, to let my ego or my pride or my defensiveness or my laziness, whatever the case may be, stop me from taking the steps that I know I should take. What is that really going to cost me in the long run? And when I reframe everything through that lens, there's this I need to engage, like what we just talked about. That's actually what I named my LLC, because I wanted to always remind myself, you're going to get afraid, you're going to get scared, you're going to lose confidence. You need to engage with the things that are tearing you down. You don't need to run from them. And if the average person had any clue how much staying in their comfort zone and not engaging the things that hold them back was costing them, I truly believe they would be sickened at what they could have done with their life had they taken those steps to grow.
There was a friend of mine who said to me once, he's like, my personal definition of hell is to meet the man that I could have become. And I was like, I understand that one. There's nothing more challenging than facing the person that you could have become simply because you let a fear, stop you. I mean, we've been down that road of fear. What's down that road of fear. And to go so far as to name your company something like that, to remind yourself, says that you are committed to this transformation process. Because ultimately, David, what I hear you saying is that you must become a different person, period. The person that you were as a police officer is not the same person that you are today, because today you would buy significantly more. Knowing what you know from the beginning, you would do things differently. For someone that's in the beginning position, or someone who's in some sort of a transition, what was it that finally got you to flip the proverbial switch?
I had this frustration that was building up in me, that I know there's more and I know I'm capable of more, but I don't feel like I'm capable of more. And I realized...
Whoa. Hold on.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who have that frustration, but you actually did something about it. What was the do something about it? A lot of people probably are feeling that right now, and they've been feeling it for years, but they've grown familiar with it. What changed?
I surrounded myself with people that were telling me, you could do more. You should be doing more, right? When I started talking to other people about what my thoughts were, what my dreams were, what my hopes were, and they were always like, that sounds really smart. You should do that. And I found that everyone around me was believing in me more than I was believing in myself. And I had to ask myself, why don't I see myself that way? What I realized was I was waiting to feel strong before I went and worked out. I wanted that confidence before I took the steps. And life does not work that way. If you wait to feel strong before you go work out, you'll never get there. Your first trips to the gym should be horrible because you're in terrible shape, and that's how you know you're exactly where you need to be. Every time I see a really big overweight person running, I just get filled up with this, what you just described, that let's do this feeling, because I know that is exactly where they should be, but it probably does not feel fun. Like the tiny little long distance runner that can go for 20 miles and, run triathlons. I learned to look at this hurts, this is hard, this is scary as I'm doing the right thing. That's how it should feel when I'm working out. And then with each little gain or little success I had, it gave me a little more confidence to do the next one. And I quit trying to do the whole thing in one move. And I understood it's a process of really small steps and I need to keep taking them. So things like listening to podcasts like yours, I personally think you have one of the most inspiring stories that I respect so much, that you understood I'm not happy where I am and it's my fault. I need to fix this. And you took that responsibility on yourself. And now you've built yourself up into this giant. I think that's why superheroes resonate with us. We love the stories because every story starts out the same. Some person that was kind of normal developed this power that they weren't expecting, and they weren't able to wield it yet. And they had to go through this growth process to either become more mature or stronger or more focused or whatever they had to go through. to like kind of be worthy of wielding that. If you go watch all the Marvel movies, you'll see that theme go through all of it, right? Yep. There's a superhero in every single one of us that inherently we know we could be doing so much more than we are. Engaging in that process, telling people around you, this is what I want to do. I'd like you to help me, hold me accountable. Point out when I'm not living my life according to these standards. Stuff like that, right? Makes a really big difference, because if people start saying, yeah, you were saying you wanted to do this, and all I hear is excuses coming out of your mouth, it's bringing to the front of your mind what's holding you back rather than letting it kind of hang out in the back.
Yeah, I totally get it. Now, here's what I know. There's a number of people who have listened this far. They have resonated with everything. They maybe even pulled over on the side of the road and said, oh my God, I have to stop. He's just dropping gems, and they're really picking up everything that you're putting down. What's going to be the best way for those individuals who want to connect with you more, find out more about what you've got going on, so that they can deepen their journey, continue their journey, build their cash flow, understand more of these concepts of building themselves, as well as building that real estate portfolio that might extend beyond the reach of their own zip code? What's going to be the best way for them to find you?
My website, greenincome.com, is the best way to get a hold of me. It's kind of an online blog that I share a lot of financial articles and blog posts I've written and podcasts I've been on. And whenever I buy a new house, I go and I put like, hey, this is what I bought. This is the pictures. Here's what I paid. This is what it's worth. This is what went well. This is what didn't. Because I believe that like most of what holds us back is fear. And you can overcome fear with education. Like one of my buddies, Brandon Turner, always says, math overcomes fear. If you run the numbers and it makes sense, then you just need to go solve all the things that are holding you back, because they probably don't really matter. There's a solution for it. So I personally think surrounding your mind with stuff like what you and I are talking about today that pulls you higher, rather than letting all the fears that you're concerned of that are just going to pull you lower, is really important. And then having those conversations with other people so that it becomes a regular part of your day, that you start to see yourself as a superhero in training, as Bruce Lee practicing his 10,000 kicks, as the person who goes to the gym and works out mentally, financially, in whatever business idea that you have, is really important. If you keep hiding from those feelings because you don't like that you feel like a loser if you think about it too much, you're kind of the fat kid at the pool that doesn't want to take off his shirt, right? Take it off, let everyone see you're not in good shape, and let that motivate you by finding friends that all want to go to the gym too. And that kind of becomes your life.
I like it a lot. So For those of you who may have missed it, Dave has been with us before. It was episode 417 for those of you who were like, hey, let me hear what he had to say the last time he was here. But there's still something I want to ask you. I've asked you before, and I want to see if your answer's kind of changed or if it's the same. For the individuals who are listening and, they're on that precipice of decision, as happens all the time when we go, hey, I'm now going to go be great. I'm standing in front of the superhero outfit store. I've got the kind of cape. I think I know the cape I want. I think I know the outfit I want to wear. I'm going to put on this mantle. I'm going to take the plunge and be that thing. Like I know, especially as it relates to money and investing and real estate, the first thing that comes up is that voice that reminds us of what we can't do, who we're not, how it didn't work last time. And oh my God, you're going to put your money in where? And for some people, they're related to people who are saying these things to them. My question to you is very simple. What would you suggest they do in knowing that they're actually going to take action in the next 24 to 48 hours? What should they do?
So is this for the example of like whether they should buy a rental property or not?
Yeah, all of it. I mean,
okay.
This entrepreneurial journey has so many facets. What does David Greene believe they should do?
So here's what I do. I like to take a logical approach to the reservations I have myself. It could be, should I go start my own business? Should I go buy this rental property? Should I invest in a little bit of money to start a blog? Whatever the case is that you think is going to help take you to the next level. If every decision, there's a reward and there's a risk. It could go great. It could go bad. You could have a little bit of both. Okay. I like to focus on how can I maximize the reward side and minimize the risk side, but knowing that risk is always a part of every decision that you make, and you don't have to look at it like it's a negative thing. Like risk really opens up the door for a potential bigger reward. So for instance, I was thinking, should I leave being a cop and go be a real estate agent? That was really scary because what if the market turns around? What if I don't do very well? I have this like really solid, consistent job with great benefits. What if I can't replicate that in real estate? So what I did is I said, I'm going to save up a lot of money in reserves so that I don't go broke doing this. And then I'm going to, and that meant I had to live a frugal lifestyle for a long time. And then I'm going to go build up my cash flow to where it's big enough that if I don't do great as a real estate agent, my cash flow will keep me afloat, not where I want to be in life, but afloat until I can figure it out. So I built up this floor underneath me to mitigate how bad it could go. I mitigated my risk, right? That's the same thing I do with every move I make. I'm like, hey, I want to go take this next step, and this is what could go wrong, and this is what could go right. What can I start doing today to protect myself, to ensure myself in case the stuff goes wrong that I'm concerned? So all I have to focus about is doing what's right. And what I find is that that's a pattern that your brain will start to figure out. Like, Jay, you do this with every step you take, whether we've thought about it or not. You're a very insightful guy, so you probably thought about it. But hey, I want to go do this next step in my business, but that means that this could go wrong. Well, how do I build up a floor underneath me to catch me if I fall and buy me time to get it figured out so that I don't worry about losing everything I have because I just took one big risk, right? We're not poker players that are like, I'm going to go all in regardless of what hand I'm holding. You take calculated risks. You wait until you've got the right cards and it makes more sense to do it. And if you go all in and you lose, you know that you have more money you can go buy more chips with and start again. Because the trick is the more poker you play, the better you're going to get at poker. And eventually you're going to be winning much more than you lose.
That's the idea. I love it 100%. I thank you for being committed to the journey of entrepreneurship. More importantly, becoming a different person, becoming the better versions of yourself as you continue. And if I heard you correctly, you're already writing another book, and I commend you for that because that's a process in and of itself. Amazing. And I thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your insight, and your wisdom here with us today at the Cashflow Diary, sir.
Thank you, Jay. It was my pleasure. I love talking to you, and thank you for sharing what you do. You help a lot of people, brother.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to the blog, Greene Income. Well, one, it's green income. That who doesn't want more of that? And that's a great thing in and of itself. But most importantly, be ready to take action. Be ready to do something. Be ready to move. Push yourself. Challenge yourself because you know, on the other side of fear is that opportunity that you're looking for to live the lifestyle that you desire. And there's a way to make it happen. And you just found yet another resource. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.